All
All right,
right.
folks.
Welcome to episode 5.
5.
That's right. Episode 5. Yeah. I'm trying to get, a better setup here to where it doesn't look like I'm just in a rubber room or something. So it looks like I'm in a room now. So, this is a better setup. I think you can see more of me. I'm not at some weird angle, like moving around. So I think this is good.
Good.
So,
So don't be ridiculous podcast. It's on my YouTube channel under Jeremy Palmer. So if anybody else wants to see, I have all the episodes up there now. I was going through some moving back and forth between one channel and the other, but I'm just gonna put everything on my channel for now, and we'll see how it
yeah.
goes.
All
So
right. Yeah, we're getting the hang of this. So, um, all right, so yeah, I guess we'll start off with the ridiculous take of the week, which I got to be honest, like I'll I'll do this every week if I have something that I actually feel is ridiculous. Because as we got halfway through the week, I didn't really think I was going to have anything, and then I listened to a clip of Colin Cowherd's show, and I'm like, oh, that's it. Because you kind of know because you're listening to it and you're like, what the hell is this guy talking about?
well, it'll be, and also the media is not as August is kind of a dead month for
Yeah,
sports.
so it'll probably be
So
a little easier.
when we get into September, October, and it
When we
starts
get
to
into
get
September, October, I can just watch Get Up or listen to Greeny's radio show and just, he'll say something absolutely ridiculous. They're like, I think this team's going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, I don't understand how anybody else doesn't see this. Um, all right, so here we'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and do this. So the ridiculous take of the week, as I said, it was something I heard on Colin Cowherd's show. On Thursday's show, he played a audio clip from Dan Lebitard's podcast. It wasn't his regular show; it's the South
South
Beach
Beach
session.
sessions.
So yeah, he'll do like a half hour interview with somebody and somebody relevant in sports. Um, Actually, somebody relevant in sports or just someone relevant in pop culture at a particular time. I mean, he kind of does a lot of different people. Anyway, so they played. So Aaron Rodgers was on Dan Lebitard's podcast, and he was talking about his decision-making process about coming back because there was a lot of speculation. Was he actually going to retire, or was he going to demand a trade? Was he not going to show up to training camp? Of course, he obviously did. And anyway, on the podcast, he said that he was seriously thinking about retiring. And you can listen to the podcast and hear him talk about it. He basically said that he spent a lot of time reflecting and meditating and, in silent reflection, trying to figure out what he should do. And he decided it would be the right thing to come back, you know. And he also said something to the effect of, he said, I mean, I don't care if people don't believe me about the I was actually considering retiring thing, you know. So then then it goes back to Colin and he goes, no, Aaron, the problem is we do believe you that you were thinking about retiring. Um, and he says that, yeah, I do believe you that you would bail on your teammates, which I think it's kind of ridiculous to characterize retiring as bailing on your teammates. I mean, granted, if you had retired then, it's like right before training camp and you're kind of leaving your team in the lurch, like they don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. But you know, um, you know, you can still retire when you want. I think that was a little over the top, you know. And then Colin talked about how basically the way that the agreement that he's got with the Packers now is he plays this year, and then next year, if he wants to be traded, he can be traded. If he doesn't want to be traded, he's under contract for another year, and then I think he can be a free agent after that. I think was the deal that they kind of reached. Um, but Colin thinks that Aaron's shrunk the trade market with those comments about thinking about retiring and being 50-50 about coming back or retiring. Um, and Colin said, what coach or GM wants to put up with this? Which that's the point where it kind of hit me like, this is ridiculous. Because I'm like, okay, just slow down there, Colin. Okay, this is the same kind of take that he kind of trots out there with Kawhi Leonard. Now, and he's been doing this with Aaron Rodgers for a while. I think he's done this a little bit with Joel Embiid, just because Joel Embiid doesn't stay healthy. But Colin, let's remember, this is Aaron Rodgers we're talking about. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's one of the most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen. And Colin points out his flaws, that he doesn't have a lot of come from behind wins. He's not necessarily great in really close games. He tends to bail on plays. He bails on teammates, and, he's kind of arrogant. Fine. That's fine. I actually don't disagree with that. But, he's trying to make it like, well, because Aaron Rodgers has these little flaws, because he's not perfect, there's not going to be a bunch of teams that want him. No. Any team that needs a quarterback, and it's not like every team needs a quarterback. There's some teams that don't, but there's some teams that like they're either they have their quarterback or they just drafted somebody and they're trying to give somebody a shot to see if they're the real deal. So yeah, it may not. I mean, it may only be 3, 4, 5 teams or something, but they're going to want Aaron Rodgers. Okay. He's not is Aaron Rodgers the leader that Brady or Peyton Manning or Russell Wilson are? Maybe not, but he's a multiple-time MVP. If he wants to be traded, people are going to be lining up to get him. Okay. And the other thing that I'm getting annoyed with, especially with Colin, is that, the term elite, like when you talk about elite quarterbacks or elite players in the NBA or just elite professional athletes, elite means like exclusive. It means rare. It means there's a few elite and then there's everybody else. There's a few elite, there's a few that are really terrible, and then everyone else is floating around in this middle area. Okay. And then he's kind of, it's almost like he's comparing him to Tom Brady. And it's like, we need to stop comparing people to Tom Brady, because Tom Brady, is Tom Brady human? I mean, did he fly in from another planet? Like, is he part alien or something? I mean, Tom Brady's like maniacally competitive. Okay. He's something that we're probably never going to see again. And the other thing I think that's kind of, he's made this take about kind of James Harden, like, oh, I would rather have LeBron. And it's like, well, yeah, no shit. I'd rather have Tom Brady, or I'd rather have Peyton Manning, or I'd rather have Patrick Mahomes. Of course that's what you want, but there's only a few of those. Okay. So if they're not available, and let's remember here, they almost never are, you take what you can get. Okay. Is he's an amazing player? Does he have some crap to put up with? Yes, but he wins a lot of games. Okay. He gets deep in the playoffs. He gives you a chance to be great. So if you can get that, you take it, you roll the dice and you try to win. Okay. Because that's what you do if you're a coach or a GM.
Yeah. Tom Brady wasn't a free agent for very long. Like, do you really, it didn't take very long.
He made the point. He's like, well, there were only a few teams that wanted him. Well, I mean, he was 43 at the time, and it's like there's only a few teams that needed him. And also Tom Brady, he's going to go where he wants to go.
Right.
So yeah, there were only a few teams that he really like. So yeah, I don't understand, and just something else that kind of really irks me about this is that Colin's kind of, I'm not going to begrudge the guy his success. He's obviously worked very hard. He's obviously very successful. He's probably got a few breaks along the way, but he's worked very hard. I'm not begrudging the guy his success, but don't expect, the vast majority of society to push themselves to be maniacally competitive and always pushing and grinding and never wanting to retire or slow down or enjoy things. I mean, Colin kind of gets into this whole thing like, I don't want to hear someone I'm hiring talking about retirement, which is fair. I don't think when you're in a job interview, you want to be talking about retirement. But look, if you don't want to retire, fine. But the vast majority of the rest of us actually want to, okay? Because again, people who are maniacally competitive are exceedingly rare.
Well, and the other thing is, you don't get to play football forever. He's going to have to retire in the next 5 to 6 years at most. So yeah, he's going to be thinking about it. But last year, I'm sure he was. So he brings it up now, but I'm sure he was thinking about it last year, and he won the MVP. So
yeah.
How much does, and first of all, I thought the exact same thing when I saw this. Yeah, there will be teams lined up to get him. Will it be half the league? No, because half the league either has a good quarterback or they're paying a quarterback a bunch of money so they can't just get out of it easily. But if you made it simple for everybody and there were no financial ramifications and you could just change quarterbacks, half the teams in the NFL would love to have Aaron Rodgers. So to act like, oh, there won't be a market because he said he was 50-50 on retirement is ridiculous. And besides that, how much of that saying he wants to retire is a negotiating tactic? Okay, he's obviously upset with the front office. So his only play when you're under contract is
Yeah.
to threaten to retire. So yeah, it's absolutely it's ridiculous that Aaron Rodgers saying that is actually going to hurt him going to another team. And the other thing I just want to point out to everybody, okay? We're acting like these reporters are all saying, well, the Packers and him have a deal that after this year, if he doesn't want to be there, they'll trade him. You sure?
Hang on, I got crap playing in the background. I don't know what the hell's going on.
We don't know. I don't buy that they've agreed to that at all. I think the Packers are going to do what's best.
I'm gonna turn this off. What the hell is going on here? So,
So yeah, I don't buy this whole they have a handshake agreement that they'll trade him after the season.
yeah.
I think it's complete nonsense. So we'll see what happens. The Packers still have the right to trade him wherever they want. He still can't. He still
Yeah.
isn't going to get to choose where he wants to
Yeah, I
go.
don't think he has as much leverage as maybe people think that he does.
So yeah, I think it's I don't think there's anything wrong with him saying it. I don't. There will be a whole bunch of teams that would love to get their hands on Aaron Rodgers. It won't be an issue. Trust me. The Dolphins were making phone calls on Deshaun Watson, and so you don't think the Dolphins are going to be trying to get Aaron Rodgers if he's available? So yeah, completely ridiculous. Has no bearing on anything. He's heard the idea that the best quarterback in the NFL. Yeah, I said it. Is hurting his trade value is nonsense. Okay,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
and when Tom Brady left New England, his team wasn't as good. The Packers made the NFC Championship game. They have a Super Bowl contending team, so it's a whole different situation. And we've made up this idea. Oh, he wants out of there. Does he really? Because he came back, no problem. Came back to
yeah.
training camp. We need to stop.
That's the other thing.
We need to not be ridiculous. See what I did there? See what I did there?
Yeah. Yeah. Good one. Well, yeah. And then, Colin's like, he's kind of saying, like, well, Aaron Rodgers isn't every single thing that I want out of my franchise quarterback. Yeah. No shit. Okay. There's like, two of those. There's like three of them in the league. There's Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, and Russell Wilson. That's it.
Right.
Okay. That's basically it. And if you're upset with Rodgers causing drama, I mean, you could maybe make the case that Russell Wilson's caused a little bit of drama because he's gotten a little upset about they haven't been as committed to offense as they have been to defense, which I'm fine with. So I just the thing that's irritating to me is that I feel like Colin is obviously very highly successful, which is fine, okay. But people who are highly successful sometimes they kind of get into this bubble almost where because Colin starts talking about, well, I've started a company and I'm hiring people now, and I want people who just can't wait to get to work and who are just excited all the time and blah. And it's like, great, yeah, you should want people who are excited to work for you and other stuff. But at the same time, I feel like with some successful people, they're almost like, we want everyone else to be on our level, which is uber competitive all the time. And it's like, that's not how everybody is. There are some people like that.
You know what corporations like more? Production. That's what they like. I like it. I like it when I turn the red light on and I need stuff to get done. This guy gets it done better than anybody. That's what I like. So we can talk about attitude all we want. Do you produce? That's the bottom line. Oh, and another thing, just before we get off this topic, okay? The Packers are waiting to see if Jordan Love is good before they let go of Aaron Rodgers. Okay? Could we stop saying that? That is talk about ridiculous. That is a bunch of crap, okay? Jordan Love is not going to be Aaron Rodgers, probably never, and definitely not next year or the year after that. So stop telling me, "Oh, well, we got to see if he's good before we let go of Aaron Rodgers." They're not just going to let go of Aaron Rodgers. Just stop. Honestly. Completely insane.
Yeah. Because also, they still, it's the NFL. The teams still have most of the leverage. This is not the NBA. The NBA, the players have a ton of the leverage, and you kind of got to march to their drum, but not in the NFL. Still, so Yeah, that was kind of my. Yeah, I thought that was a ridiculous. I mean, it was mostly just ridiculous because it's like you think teams aren't going to be lining up to get Aaron Rodgers, and Colin's like, oh, I wouldn't want him if I was running a team. Well, Colin, if you were running a team and you didn't want Aaron Rodgers and you needed a quarterback, you would be an idiot.
You'd be fired, is what you'd be.
Yeah,
You'd be unemployed.
Okay. Because, if Deshaun Watson, once all this stuff clears up, eventually, whatever happens, when he goes through the legal system, gets penalized, whatever he gets penalized, and then he gets suspended or whatever. Once that's over, okay, if he still wants to play football and he's still in shape, teams will be lining up to get Deshaun Watson. Okay,
right.
So again, he's not everything I would want in my franchise quarterback because whatever the hell's going on with him and masseuses and whatever, I don't know, and it's freaking weird. But teams will be lining up to get him. So. Yeah, let's slow down on that whole thing where, like I said, there's only one LeBron, there's one Tom Brady. If you don't have him, you gotta make the best with everything, with whatever else is there. Okay.
Yep.
So, all right. So we want to talk about Tebow, probably the last time.
All right, let's get this over with. So Tim Tebow was cut by the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Like probably the first player cut.
Yeah, before
that preseason game?
After the first preseason game, right?
Yeah, which if you watch that first preseason game, you realize he can't block anybody. So
yeah, listen, I have a general rule. I'm not trying to be uppity or elitist here, but I don't watch preseason games.
Neither do I. I've watched some clips. Like for instance, I watched some highlights of Tua yesterday. It's a preseason game. I mean, I liked he looked comfortable in the pocket. He stepped up a couple times, which I thought there were a few times last year he didn't do that. So that's good. Get some reps in there, and then in the regular season we'll see if it actually means anything. I mean, they're playing the Falcons, so who the hell knows?
I can't get into preseason because I just don't believe you can really take anything from it. But I will watch highlights. I'm not a complete hypocrite, but
yeah, no, I mean, you watch highlight, and if there's an injury, then you kind of, anyway. So, all right. So with this Tebow thing, I've got a whole thing going here. So the first thing I want to do is actually define a couple of terms. So when I'm talking about this, people can understand what I mean. So if I say that someone is polarizing, I mean that basically some people view a person or a thing one way, and then other people view it a different way. But I think that both sides have some valid points. That to me is someone who's polarizing, because if two people view someone a different way, and one side is just completely full of it and they don't have any facts on their side, then we're not really having a legitimate argument. I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous. Okay. So example, LeBron is polarizing. Okay. Some people don't like the political statements that he makes. Some people love it. And I think you could make an argument either way. Some people think he's the greatest basketball player of all time. Other people don't. I can see a legitimate argument either way. So LeBron is an example of someone who's polarizing. Terrell Owens was polarizing, and I could see the argument because he's a Hall of Famer. So he was obviously a very, very good player, but he also had some off-field stuff that was kind of ridiculous. So anyway, that's what I mean when I say polarizing. Okay. And then the other thing I want to talk about is, or define, is what it means to actually be a hater. Because being a hater is different from validly criticizing someone. You and I used to hate the Yankees and the Spurs, but it really wasn't a valid criticism. We didn't like the way the Spurs played, but they were winning championships.
Right.
We didn't like the Yankees in the late 90s, but they were winning the World Series. So we were just being a hater, So that's what I mean when I say hater. So I want to be abundantly clear here. I remember there was an interview with Quentin Tarantino he did after his last movie where they criticized something he did in the movie, and he said, "I reject your hypothesis," which was a great quote. So if you think that what's about to follow here, if you think that I'm being a hater on Tebow, I reject your hypothesis. Okay, If you think that that Tebow is polarizing, I reject your hypothesis. Okay. Because in order for Tebow to be polarizing, you guys would have to have facts on your side, and a lot of times you really don't when you're discussing this. It becomes a very emotional argument, and it's kind of like it's a tribal thing. It's like, well, Tebow is Christian, so, and I'm a Christian, so I'm always going to support him no matter what. Which is it's kind of like you're not discussing the situation in good faith. Okay, so I think we've kind of it's pretty clear already. Obviously, that Tebow is not an NFL QB because this latest stint in the NFL, he was trying to be a tight end. Okay, he basically washed out of the NFL trying to be a QB 9 years ago. Okay, he had that run with the Broncos, and then he was traded to the Jets, and then he was on the Patriots briefly and the Eagles briefly, and he got cut from both of those teams, and that was it. Okay. Let's see, where was I? Okay. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to kind of point out was I think there's still a large contingent of people who they kind of think, well, if he had just gotten more opportunities, you would have seen that he would have been a winner, like Skip Bayless and a lot of Tebow's fans. But the guy couldn't really run an NFL offense. Okay. If you remember, the Broncos offense was really terrible when he was there. Most of the games, he wouldn't do anything for about 3.5 quarters, and then the defense would go into prevent, and then he would run around and he might make a throw here or there, but he would basically just run around and score points, and then they would win. The defense would have to play out of their minds for the entire game, and the kicker, made a bunch of kicks. There was one game where they were playing the Bears, and all the Bears running back had to do was stay in bounds, and the idiot ran out of bounds. So that gave them enough time. I literally remember sitting there watching this, and I remember the guy running out of bounds, and I just started laughing because I'm like, oh my God, this guy's going to win this game this way. There was one game where he needed an onside kick. I think they were playing the Dolphins. And he didn't do anything for 3 quarters, and then they score a touchdown, then they get the onside kick, then he goes down, then they score again, and they win the game. Let's see. He made a few throws in the playoff game, but I think a lot of the people analyzing the playoff game are watching it going, what the hell are the Steelers doing on defense? They're acting like Tebow, can't throw the ball at all. It's not that he couldn't throw the ball at all. He just couldn't run an NFL offense. The other thing I think was kind of funny was this week and then the last week, I'm listening to Skip Bayless on Undisputed, and he keeps talking about that run that Tebow had with the Broncos was just magical. And you know what? I actually agree with Skip. It was magical because if you look at all the confluence of events that had to happen for him to go, I think it was 5-3, so they could go 8-8 and make the playoffs. I mean, if that division wasn't so awful back then, there's no way he would have made the playoffs. So
it was a great run, but it was also 9 years ago. Or, yeah, I'm sorry, 11 years ago.
He's 34 years old. Okay. So, then his, remember, his dream was to play quarterback in the NFL. It didn't work out. He washed out. So then he decides to go play baseball, which he hadn't done since high school, which I thought was kind of weird. He does this for the New York Mets farm system. He never actually made it up to the majors, which just raises the question to me, dude, are you trying to stay relevant? Or are you just, do you like being around the locker room or something? It's just kind of weird. Remember when he was on the Jets and he did that whole thing where he took his shirt off and he ran across the field and there was the press was covering it oh my God, you see Tebow took his shirt off? It was kind of dude, are you just trying to get attention? Is there a little bit of that going on? Because it seemed a little weird. And then he comes back, he tries out to be a tight end. And the thing was, I think people were like, oh, you're being a hater. Just give the guy a chance. It's if this was anyone else trying out for a completely different position at the age of 34 after being out of the league for 9 years, wouldn't you think that it's a little bit ridiculous? I mean, and again, we tell kids all the time, follow your dreams, which is true, follow your dreams. But at a certain point, you have to kind of go, all right, maybe you need to modify this, or maybe you need to go into something else. like, I don't know if you know the guy Mike Rowe who hosts that show Dirty Jobs.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So his dream was actually to do something. I don't remember exactly what it is. It was like to be in engineering or do some sort of like working with your hands, like fixing stuff, using tools and stuff. And for whatever reason, he tried to do it and he just sucked at it. So he just went into something else, which that's what happens. Sometimes you're really into something, but you suck at it. And you just, you got to change gears and do something else. Um, I mean, it's kind of like those people in American Idol who they go to the audition and they go sing and they suck. And it's like, how did you not know you sucked? Like, and the judges are telling them, "Oh, I'm awful," and they're like, "No, no, no, I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be rich and famous," and it's like, no, someone's trying to tell you that you suck. You need to kind of listen and maybe change what you're doing. Um, I'm trying to think. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? I'm trying to think of what else.
Yeah, two things. Number one, you're a hater. And number two, God works in mysterious ways. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, listen. I think this whole thing was a setup to begin with. I think there was a little bit of marketing involved. Jacksonville trying to get relevant. Um, but honestly, Tebow to me it's mostly irrelevant because he's not going to affect wins and losses
Yeah.
on the field. Even if he had made the team, he probably wouldn't have played very much at all. So it's only a big story because Tim Tebow is a big.
Well, and then I'm listening to who was I listening to? Clay Travis is like Tebow's getting more hate than Deshaun Watson is, and I'm like, okay, hang on a minute here. This is again where it gets into tribalism, like where well, my side is this. My side is either, he's Christian, so I'm in that, or he's on my side because, he was in the SEC and he was a great player there. He's a really good person, so I'm putting him there. And it's like, shouldn't we kind of have the same standard for everybody? So, I mean, like I said, if this was anyone else, we would have thought this is ridiculous. Okay. And it's not hating to make a legitimate criticism that, like, how the hell is this guy going to play? I mean, Shannon Sharp is on Undisputed saying this is ridiculous. Like, he's not going to be able to block somebody. I remember Colin Cowherd saying this is ridiculous too. Like, you as a tight end, you're not just catching passes. You have to block people. And remember, you're standing across from somebody who, they need to get past you because you're trying to because if they don't do well, then their job's getting taken away. So, you're not ready to, like, this is ridiculous. Okay. And it's not just like, oh, well, why are you coming down so hard on him? It's like, look, it's fine if you like the guy, that's fine. But if it was anybody else, you'd be saying, so I think we've got to get away from this whole thing. Well, he's on my team or he's on my side, so I'm not going to say anything against him. And I've even seen this with some conservatives about this because, I've read some different conservative media and they're saying, they like Tebow because he's conservative or because he's Christian, excuse me.
Right.
So, which that's fine. But you hear some of them saying, oh, people are hating on Tebow because he's getting this tryout. And it's like, okay, you're the same people who argued like 4 or 5 years ago that Colin Kaepernick didn't deserve to be on an NFL roster, forgetting all the political stuff, which there's a case to be made there. I would tend to disagree with you. I think if it wasn't for the political stuff, he probably would have been, he was good enough to be a backup quarterback and he probably would have made a roster somewhere, but again, he's a backup quarter. He's not like, a really great quarterback or anything. So if you're going to say that, then how is it that you're saying a guy who's 34, who hasn't been in the league in 9 years and trying to play a position he's never played before, oh, you're hating on him because you're criticizing it? It's like, no, I'm just being fair. You're just being tribal. You're just being tribal. Okay. And that makes it it makes it very difficult for me to trust a lot of the people who are saying this kind of stuff, because it's like, well, how do I know that you're saying stuff you really believe in? And it's not just based on the fact that, well, I've sort of picked out what my side is and I'm just going to defend my side.
Yeah, I was talking about somebody about this the other day. Sports and politics are actually very similar. The only difference is that the things that we say about sports don't really matter that much. They
Yeah.
don't actually affect anything. We're not talking about actual people's lives. Well, other than the players, but we're not.
Yeah.
It doesn't dramatically change anybody's life for the most part. Um,
But the thing is, you see this kind of tribalism in politics too, where it's basically like, and I'm not gonna go down this rabbit hole, but you know, you're seeing Trump supporters say Biden totally blew it on Afghanistan, and it's like, you voted for Trump. Trump ran on, I want to get the hell out of Afghanistan. He never did it. Biden actually did it, but people, they can't. It's like, well, no, my side is this, so I can't give the other side credit. It's like,
So
it's kind of
to
mad.
me, yeah, you make a good point. And to me, the bigger issue with the Tebow thing, regardless of whether Tebow plays, doesn't play, like I said, that's not going to affect anything on the field. Doesn't matter in terms of wins
Yeah,
and
no,
losses.
no,
What concerns me more is that I, from what I'm seeing from Urban Meyer, who's their head coach,
yeah,
I don't get the impression that he knows what he's doing because they had a fiasco with he hires the strengthening and conditioning coach who had all these racist allegations against him, fires him the next day. They talked when the NFL free agency happened. He was like, "Oh, I'm confused. I don't understand why our free agency works this way. It was different than college." When they had to start making cuts on the roster, he's like, "Oh, I'm not used to this because in college, we get to keep all these players, and I know I didn't used to. I'm not used to having to choose between players." Like, I understand if those are challenging things for you, but the fact that he's coming out talking to the media and saying that, "Oh, I don't understand these things," or "I'm having trouble with these things," that raises red flags to me. I'm not saying it's a game changer. I'm just saying I have concerns. And then this whole Tebow thing, and then he cuts him after the first preseason game. I'm almost more disturbed by it that he did that. If he'd have waited till before the season started and then cut him, I would almost understand it. But okay, so he was just in there for locker room morale. Well, why didn't you just hire him as a coach then? So
well,
I
yeah,
have major, and then they're not announcing that Trevor Lawrence is a starting quarterback, which okay, it's fine. They want to do some nonsense cloak and dagger, whatever. But yeah, I'm worried about this entire Jacksonville situation. So I think the Tebow thing is just a small part of this. Does
I think
not look right.
that may be part of the reason some people are being critical of this. I mean, there's other things, like I saw Jason Whitlock was posting a clip of Stephen A. Smith saying, Tebow only got the tryout there because it's white privilege. I don't want to go down that road, but I will say that it's pretty clear that Tebow only got the opportunity because of his relationship with Urban Meyer.
Correct.
Which, in fairness, I mean, yes, in the employment world, yes, there are, you do tend to get opportunities based on relationships you have. But, I mean, and he did end up getting cut with the first round of cuts. But I did think it was kind of funny that, I'm listening to Skip Bayless talk about this. He's saying, I thought that they were going to use him for some sort of some gadget plays or something. And I thought that there was he even said that I thought there was some whole grand plan to have him on the roster. I'm like, what are you even saying? Their grand plan to have him on the roster? Okay, then why would you want him to be a tight end? Like what? So wait a minute, you're going to waste a roster spot just to have him on there, even if he can't. I'm trying to figure out what Skip was kind of implying there, and then he's like, "Oh, they're going to use him for gadget plays." You have Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is a really talented guy who can run around, and he's got a great arm. Why would you? If you're the Saints and you have Taysom Hill, then yes, you have some gadget plays for him because he's faster than Tebow, and he's probably a better thrower, I would imagine. So, why they would want to do that? I don't see why that would make that much of a difference. And then the other thing, I heard someone point this out the other day. They're like, "Oh, Tebow will be great for the locker room." Again, you have Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is a great leader. Remember last year, he was kind of a leader in terms of we want to play college football this year because a lot of people were like, we don't know if it's safe or whatever, and he was kind of leading the charge for we want to play. And by the way, he was in the national championship game. Was he a true freshman?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in the national championship game as a true freshman, which they won going away. Okay, and he's been in a bunch of big games. So he's a leader. I don't understand why you would need to bring someone else in who's not really an NFL player. Again, it just doesn't make sense,
Right.
So, and then the thing you're talking about it being a coach. Okay, what's he going to coach?
You think every NFL coach is really seriously
Okay,
qualified?
that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
Every NFL head coach brings in their own guys every time they go somewhere. He could be this. He could be the quality control guy. I mean, it doesn't matter if you just want him there for morale. I get that. Like, I completely
yeah,
understand that. I don't understand the whole roster spot thing. It just, it just doesn't make sense to me.
yeah. So it's just again, it's an example of something where people just, this guy's on my team, so I'm not gonna, and it's just, come on, guys. Like, you can have two thoughts in your head at the same time. I really like Tebow as a, Christian and, whatever else. I liked him as a college football player. That's great. You can also say at the same time, he's not an NFL player and you're not hating on the guy, you know? So the only other thing I wanted to say was just, I do kind of question some of his, I question a little bit some of his decisions, because it's just like I said before, is he trying to get attention with certain places? I mean, he didn't necessarily have to get traded to the Jets. He kind of decided to get traded there, and then he goes to play baseball, and it's like, so maybe that's nothing. Maybe he just goes and he's just an analyst on the SEC network, and he does, some missionary work around the world and raises
Well,
his
like
family.
I texted you, he's trying to fulfill a dream. How many dreams does he get to fulfill? Like most
Yeah,
of us in life, if we're lucky, we get one dream and we actually get to kind of, you know, live
yeah,
in that dream. He got to play in the NFL. He got to play minor league baseball, which most people don't get to do that.
yeah,
He's gotten to be an analyst on television. Like I'm just I don't understand what's left here. It's kind of like boxers never can retire. They always got to come back for that last fight.
yeah.
So I wonder if it's something like that.
Yeah,
So
that's kind of, yeah. So it's just kind of like, dude, just move on. Just do something else. You had a great, there's no shame in it, really. You had an unbelievable college career. You're one of the best, players the SEC is, the best college football player. So just, you're not an NFL quarterback. That's fine. Tons of college quarterbacks never make them anything of themselves in the NFL. I mean, I just saw the Falcons were playing the Dolphins yesterday. I saw AJ McCarron out there, and he's basically been a backup his entire career. I mean, he's good enough to make an NFL roster, but he's not a starter. So again, it's like you got to be really good just to make an NFL roster. You got to be extremely good to actually be a regular starter. You have to be in the top, 1%, probably a slice of 1%, not even the top 1%. So, just kind of move on, dude. It's just kind of, and that's probably the last time we ever talk about this. But again, who the hell knows? Maybe he's gonna become an Olympic weightlifter or something. I don't know. I
so
mean,
what?
he's good at lifting weights. I mean,
Hey, listen, there's a He should put his workout regimen on YouTube. So people could probably use it. All right. So what did you want to go after next?
I don't know. You want to do some college football? We haven't
All
really.
right.
Yeah, there was the whole. You heard about this alliance thing, right?
No.
So let me look this up. Hang on. So I don't even know what it's supposed to be yet. I was listening to Paul Feinbaum and he was talking about it. Where is that? Hang on. According to ESPN, the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Pac-12 are expected to formally announce an alliance between the three leagues in the next 7 to 10 days. Now, as to what that alliance is, they haven't announced it yet. So we don't know what that is. That just, we're going to schedule some games. And I mean, if you think about it, those conferences probably have a lot in common, because as opposed to the SEC, and maybe this is a crass way of looking at it, the SEC and with the football teams is all about winning football games, period. The schools in the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12, I think they want to win football games, but they are academically, you might say that they're academically tougher than the schools in the SEC. I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't have I don't have
Also,
all the info.
also the ACC cares about basketball to a certain extent. They don't care about it anywhere near as much as football, but they do care about basketball.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, what was one athletic director asked ESPN, is that about philosophy, governance, scheduling? It could be all of those things. So again, I don't know what that means. If some of those teams are going to try to join up or something. I did find it kind of funny. The Penn State AD said, basically something about, well, we don't just want to form an alliance. It's not just all about money. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I mean, the reason the SEC has surpassed these other places is because they're just trying to win football games almost at all costs. I mean, they're all in, and I think some of the other conferences, maybe they're not, which again, that's fine, but it's just like, you're going to get left behind. The SEC is just going to continue to get all this money and win all these games and be in the playoff and win national championships.
So the Big 12 wasn't involved in this?
No, which is kind of weird, right? That was another thing that, like, I think Feinbaum and some other people were talking about, like, why I don't understand, because I don't know what those other schools are going to do. Now, again, Texas and Oklahoma, they're still in the Big 12 until 2025, according to the agreement. They'd have to pay something like $80 million to get out early. So, which people are like, oh, they'll figure out some way out of that. I'm like, maybe, but I think the Big 12 would kind of fight hard for $80 million, but we'll see.
If it means going to the SEC, they'll find a way to get out of it. Listen, I'm all for more games between the Power 5 conferences. So if that happens, that's great. I'm all for that.
Yeah.
So I looked at some of the college football schedules just to kind of get a bead on who's going to get the best shot at making the playoff.
So Georgia is 2 weeks from now, I believe, right?
So that's one of the big games, especially early in the season, is Clemson and Georgia, because that game will go pretty far. I mean, Clemson and Oklahoma, they have the inside track to make the playoff because their schedules just aren't that difficult. Like even if Clemson loses the Georgia game, they're likely to win all of their other games by double digits.
Yeah.
So, and same thing with Oklahoma. The only reasonably tough team they have to play is Iowa State, which is
Georgia doesn't have to play. They don't have to play Bama. I mean, unless like they would play them in the SEC championship game. They got to play Florida. I think they play Ole Miss.
They play Florida, Auburn, and LSU, I believe.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So, yeah, they could conceivably run through that. And a lot of those games are spread out. It's not like one after the other. So, they could conceivably lose to Clemson, and that, if they win the rest of their games, they'll be in the SEC championship. And if they win that, they're in the playoff. So,
right. Yeah. So, Alabama's schedule is they've got they do have some tough road games. They have to play at Florida, and they have to play they're playing Miami the first game, and then they have to play at Auburn, at Texas, or no, I don't.
Well, they lost a bunch of people to the NFL, so granted they have that quarterback who's supposed to be really good.
Yeah, so Alabama's schedule may be a little tougher than it usually is, so we'll see how that goes. Notre Dame is going to have they play enough good teams. They're playing Wisconsin, they're playing Cincinnati, USC. So they're going to have some shots. Just going like I'm assuming the top four is going to be Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Ohio State.
So these pretty much the same four we basically see every single year.
Right, pretty much those four, and then I think some teams have some outside shots. I think Notre Dame has a chance. I think North Carolina has a chance.
Well, and the thing is, I think people get kind of like, I can understand if you get bored with the same four teams, but what do you want? Those are probably the four best teams. I mean,
right.
I don't know what to tell you. It's like the SEC, everybody kind of beats each other up, and if somebody comes out on top, then they're going to the playoffs. So I don't know,
Yeah.
These other conference. Like if someone were to go undefeated in the Pac-12, then they'd probably have a really good shot at getting in. Even if people think that's where things could get interesting, but is that going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah, the Pac-12 hasn't made the playoffs since 2016.
But Oregon made the playoff. Yeah.
Right. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see how this goes. We got some. There's several teams. Alabama, Clemson, um, Ohio State all have new quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So
Which I think makes things a little interesting because you don't how are they going to do in a big game? Is somebody going to throw a bad interception or something like you know?
yep,
Um,
yeah. Notre Dame also new quarterback.
yeah, they had
So
that guy for like 5 years. So
so we'll see. So yeah, I'm excited to see how this goes. We got some early games that are interesting. I mentioned Alabama's playing Miami, Georgia's playing Clemson. So I think we could have some. Ohio State's playing Oregon. I think second or third week. So we might have some. We might have some interesting games. But you know, anybody who's gambling out there, the
yeah,
best
I
the
mean,
the
yeah, I
best
had
four
some
teams are the
people
best
talking
four
about who they
teams.
thought might be dark horses, and I think someone was saying like, what was I watching? I was watching some videos on 247sports.com, I think, and the guy was talking about like if you want like a dark horse team, some dark horse teams, like he said, maybe LSU because I forget what he was saying, but like they got to play a little better than they did last year. Like Ole Miss, like if they just their offense was good last year because they have Lane Kiffin. Like if their defense was just average instead of terrible, then conceivably they could be close. Because that's the thing with college football, they don't schedule like all the teams in their conference, and it's like every year. So it's like one year you may get this team, but then the next year you don't, or they just went, they're just not schedule somebody, and it's like, well, we'd probably see them in the SEC championship game if we make it that far. So
Yeah, Wisconsin is playing Penn State and Michigan, but they're not playing Ohio State.
yeah,
So they have a bit of a they have a nice path.
would they have to play them in the Big Ten
Yes.
championship?
Yeah,
Okay.
they have a nice path to get to that point. Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so anyway, I don't have a lot on college football.
Yeah,
I
when
think
there's some games going on, I think we'll have more. I mean, I still think it's I know we're eventually going to end up with an 8-team or 12-team playoff, which I'm not really looking forward to because I think 4 teams is kind of perfect. But you know, I do kind of I get where things are kind of headed because we've made everything about getting into that playoff, and if you're not getting in there, which most teams aren't, it's those 4 teams. It's like those 4 or maybe 5 teams keep getting in there every year. So if that's the case, then I guess we got to expand things to get more. Because if you expand it just to 8 teams, then yeah, you're going to get you're going to get a Pac-12 team in there probably, and you'll get somebody else, maybe somebody from the Big Ten or somebody else from the ACC or something. So yeah, I mean, I guess it gives more people hope, but it's again, I just think college football is interesting because they've got a system where they kind of you know I think they tend to find the best team at the end of the year, as opposed to other sports which don't necessarily always do that. So, but it's kind of I'm kind of with Kirk Herbstreit on this, where he's kind of if you listen to him talk about it, he's kind of resigned to the fact that the most important thing now is all this money that they're making, and rivalries and geography and having a conference identity just isn't that big of a deal anymore. So that's just kind of the way it goes, which again I think is to their detriment. I think they're kind of losing something, but
yeah,
it's the way things are going. I think I'd probably be better off with it if if the players were actually making money on it. I mean, the name, image and likeness thing is cool, but that's not a part of the pie that the rest of the school and the coaches get. I want the athletes to actually get part of that, because like I said, the other stuff's nice. I mean, you see some of these guys making money, and there's probably some of them that are making a little bit of money, and it's not, not a crazy amount, but you know,
all right. So anything else you wanted to?
trying to think. We didn't have a you blew it, bro, but that's just there wasn't very much going on. Um, I'm sure we'll have some of those during the NFL and the college football season because somebody will make a stupid interception or make a stupid fumble or something like that. Yeah, but for people listening here, let's try to let me see if I can get this to come up on here. Hang on. Share. Okay. I'm going to see if this works. Hang on. So for the people watching, I'm loading up I've got a retro game emulator. So we were going to try, not this week, not on this podcast, but in the future ones. All right. Do you see everything?
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, I see your screensaver.
You see my screen? Oh, hang on. Actually, let me get kind of full screen here. Hang on. Okay.
There we go.
Where am I? Where is that game? I needed to make a better place to put this, but
All right, so yeah, Clark's idea is he wants us to live stream us playing retro games against each other. He thinks it'll be entertaining. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, I don't
how
know.
it goes. But
Something to
that's
try out.
an idea we're floating out there.
Trying to be different. I mean, rather than there's tons of people on the internet sitting around talking about sports. So I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting.
And playing video games.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, anything else you wanted to?
Trying to think of anything else on this week. I think that was kind of it.
Yep.
There's always other little things that go on which I just don't think are that interesting. Like LeBron didn't get any votes for best player and it was like GMs or something. He didn't get any votes for like best player in the league, and then people get all. I just think that's ridiculous crap that I really don't care about. There's always a bunch of that stuff going on during the week, and I just kind of, do you really want to hear us sit around here and debate who's the better player, Jordan or LeBron? It's like, come on. If we really wanted to, we could get into that, but I just don't. I think there's tons of people talking about that, and I just think it's a way to kill time because there's nothing better to talk about. So. Yeah. So, all right. I guess that does it for episode 5. I guess next week. Let me see. Am I off the share screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So next week there's some college football games, right? I don't think everybody starts next weekend.
Right. No, it's not until Labor Day weekend.
So the NFL, they're starting. Are they starting Labor Day weekend, or are they starting the week after, like normal?
The week after.
Okay. So they're playing 17 games. So that means the Super Bowl is going to be later in February then, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So like the middle of February. Okay. It's going to be kind of weird. I feel like we're going to reach a point where the NFL starts in like the end of September and they just go to like March or something. It might make sense. It'd be weird. It wouldn't be as cold. So.
Yeah. By that time, there's so few games anyway. All right, folks. So, don't be ridiculous. Episode 5 in the books. See everybody soon.
Hopefully there's people listening.
Yep.